Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it.
The right outfit doesn't just change how you look, it changes how you show up. There's something powerful about the way you show up in the world. That's why I'm excited to share one of my favorite discoveries with you, Quince. Quince is a casual luxury brand priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/TYM for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/TYM for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TYM.
When you go up there's these double staircases in the lobby and Colonel Driscoll's paintings right in the middle of the staircases. So I saw what he looked like. We get up to the second level and there's a kind of a open area around a bunch of ballrooms on the perimeter. And I smelled cigar smoke. And I mean, this is ornate, crystal chandeliers everywhere, just beautiful, beautiful old decor and everything. And I thought, there is no way they're going to let somebody smoke inside this hotel, let alone a cigar. That's not going to happen. So I turned my radar on and I saw Colonel Driscoll's spirit, kind of waltzing across the floor. He was just checking stuff out. And he looked exactly like he looked in that painting.
That picture, and he had a cigar.
And he had a cigar. He was smoking his cigar. And it was his spirit. So the story goes on. We go around these other ballrooms. And we go in this one, and there are these amazing, there were 8 of them, gold gilded mirrors, gold leaf mirrors. And at the top of every one of them was a cameo carved into the wood, the cameo of a woman. Mm-hmm. And this little cute bellman said to me, we think these came from Emperor Maximilian's palace in Mexico City, and we think the cameo is of his wife, Carlotta. And I'm hearing in my head, no, it's not. It's his girlfriend. It's his mistress, Jocinda.
So the Driscoll was talking to you?
The spirits were talking to me. And I said to him, have you ever heard of his mistress, Jocinda? And he said, no. And he's going on. And so I just called Carlotta and Jocinda's spirits in, and they showed up in their ball gowns.
Oh my gosh.
Their silk ball gowns with the hoop skirts and dripping in diamonds and jewels and the tiaras and the whole 9 yards. And I said, who's the cameo? And Jocinda said, it's me.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Julie Ryan, a psychic medium, medical intuitive, and serial entrepreneur. And Julie and I are going to be talking on the topic, tuning into the unseen, healing, intuition, and the spirit world. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be with you.
I'm so thrilled to have this conversation. I love anything about, intuition in the spirit world and psychic and all that. So it's one of the topics that I have a huge curiosity on. All right. So as we get started, I want to ask you guys a question. Have you ever felt a quiet knowing inside you, a whisper that couldn't be explained by logic? A moment when something told you to pay attention and you didn't know why? Well, what if that voice wasn't random? What if healing, guidance, and connection were always available, if only we learned how to tune in? Julie believes exactly that. Julie Ryan, like I mentioned earlier, is a psychic medium, medical intuitive, inventor, entrepreneur, and the host of the globally streamed podcast, Ask Julie Ryan. She built companies, designed surgical devices, and at the same time learned how to scan the human body energetically, communicate with spirits, and bring peace to people navigating illness, loss, and uncertainty. Julie calls herself a buffet of psychicness. But what struck me most isn't what she can do, is why she does it. She does it to help people remember who they really are, to soften the fear around death, to awaken intuition, to remind us that we're not just bodies trying to survive life, we are souls having a human experience. If you've ever questioned what happens when we die, I know we all want to know. Wondered whether your intuition could grow stronger or longed for deep healing. This conversation is for you. So take a breath, open your heart, and let's transform your mind. All right. So, Julie, you have lived both in the business world and the spiritual realm, founding companies while developing psychic and medical intuitive abilities. What first awakened you to these gifts, and how did you learn to trust them?
Well, first of all, I learned how to do all of this stuff. I didn't have dead people chasing me as a child. Or if I did, Myrna, I wouldn't have known what to do with that. So I was given a book more than 30 years ago by a friend who gave it to me for my birthday, and it's called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mace, PhD.
Ah, I know her.
Okay. And she talked about how she was a medical intuitive. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? I'd never heard that term before. Excuse me. And I was at that time, for 30 years, I was in the hospital supply industry. I was inventing and manufacturing surgical devices and selling them globally. And so I was helping people heal, but through their medical providers, through their surgeons and their doctors. And I wanted to know more. And back then, we didn't have the internet yet. So I thought, should I go to the library or should I go to a bookstore? And I figured the bookstore might have more information about woo woo stuff. Woo, by the way, means source in Taoism, which I love. And I think the word woo woo is fun. So I use it a lot. So I went to this bookstore and I found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan that was written probably 50 years ago. And she was a former NASA physicist who parlayed very complex quantum physics principles into understandable language for the non-scientific mind. That would be me. And she was talking about how to use energy to help facilitate healing. And again, I wanted to know more. I was being drawn in. I just had this insatiable curiosity about what is this and how does this work and how can I do it? And I called her school and I said, "Do you guys have anybody teaching this stuff in my area?" And lo and behold, one of her graduates had just opened a school. And so I studied with her for 6 years. Fast forward a little more than 30 years, I teach what took me 6 years to learn. Maybe I was a slow learner. I teach it in online self-paced classes with practice groups. And then I also teach it live in a weekend, the whole buffet of psychicness, which means we can talk to your dead grandma. I can scan your cat. We can do medical, not diagnosis, but identifications and healings. I'm like a human MRI. I can see inside people's bodies with their permission. I can see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer in my mind's eye. And then facilitate healings. We can do past life stuff. We can tell how close to death your loved one is. We can talk to any spirit, whether it's attached to a body or not. We talk to any angel. I mean, you don't have to have known somebody when they were alive. I mean, who do you want to talk to? Elvis, Moses, Mother Teresa, it doesn't matter. And we just get in touch with them. So I teach people from all walks of life. And I think we've had 14 or 15 countries go through my training, people from all those countries. And the only prerequisite is you have to speak English.
Yeah, because that's your major language. Now, wow, I'm very curious. So the first thing I want to circle back on it's funny that you should say that you didn't have any dead people chasing you, but because the last psychic I spoke to, that's exactly was her experience. I mean, she said she would wake up and she would find all these people at the edge of her bed. So what I think you said, and I want to clarify, is that you weren't born with this ability. You learned it. Did I hear that right?
Everybody's born with the ability. It's a matter of developing and enhancing it.
Okay.
Everybody has the capability. I
Mhm.
didn't know it. I hadn't turned mine on because I didn't know anything about it. I
Okay.
knew I knew I was went through 12 years Catholic school and raised Roman Catholic, so I knew about guardian angels and saints and the Holy Spirit and stuff like that, which I think the Catholics do a really good job of giving us a platform from which to launch. But many people have their abilities already turned on. All children are able to do it. And I have a million stories I can share with you about children, but for me personally, I have no memory of accessing anything like that as a child. Not until I was in my mid 30s and I started studying it.
Okay, wow. Well, it's really interesting because, yeah, before we hit the record button, we were talking about whether I have anything to contribute if I were to come on your show. And where I went to in my mind was the fact that, yeah, I have spirit guides and I have intuition, and they guide me and they talk to me, and I know that I have a guardian angel and all that. So it's great that you say that that is a launching pad for, but I have never, like you mentioned in your intro, that you're a medical intuitive. You can look at someone's body and see, what disease. You can talk to spirits in the past. I can't do that. My my skill is just, hearing from my spirit guides or the Holy Spirit or whoever it is that's talking to me and guiding me. So what you're saying is that if someone were to come to your course, you teach them how to turn something that's natural on.
Absolutely. And I can teach you how to do all of that stuff that I do
Really?
from the whole buffet of
Wow.
psychicness in a weekend. Absolutely. And
Wow.
so, and then I have self-paced online courses that are just communicating with spirit and what happens when somebody dies. Then I've got another one that's medical intuition, identifying medical things, and then also doing energetic healings. And then the whole buffet of psychicness I teach live twice a year, once online in the spring and once in person in Atlanta, Georgia. I always the weekend before Halloween, and people
Yeah.
from
Well,
all over
that's a
the
perfect
world.
time.
I know, exactly. But it's a matter of you're already experiencing some of the abilities that everybody has. It's like you can throw a football, but you're not going to be Tom Brady unless you throw it a lot and you
Yeah.
practice it.
And you
And that
learn,
and
right?
that's really how it all works. In my classes, it's 10% technique, it's 90% transfer of energy from me to my students at a super high vibe. And then it's kind of like synchronizing a metronome. And you'll have some technique, but the key, the secret sauce is the practice groups. And there are multiple ones a week.
That's amazing. I have never heard this before. I thought that you were actually born with this. I mean,
Everybody is.
I, sorry. Yeah. I mean, well, when I say right, we're all born with intuition, which is basically what what I mentioned about your gut and when something was off, and we're able to scan danger and those type of things. But the accessing the spirit world, yeah, I thought that was a special gift. As you said you're Catholic, we're born with gifts, that it's a special gift. So it is great that, it can be taught. And that is great.
And it's a blast too, Myrna. It's so
Yeah.
much fun. And you're already communicating with spirit. You just don't realize it.
Probably.
Everybody is. Everybody
Yeah.
is. That
Yeah.
intuition, that gut feeling you have,
Mhm.
that's communicating with spirit. But
Yeah,
we get
I that part I knew.
70,000
Right.
thoughts a day in our heads, and we don't pay attention to a lot
You
of
don't
them.
pay
And
attention to it.
I think
Mhm.
intuition has been trained out of a lot of us too.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have to quiet the noise in your head in order to access it. And I'm a meditator, and that's basically how I I tune in by quieting my mind and all that. So that's amazing. Now, you say that you can turn your abilities on and off at will, only with permission. So what is the ethical boundary? Why is the ethical boundary so important? And what misunderstandings do people have about psychic work?
Well, I turn my abilities on and off at will, and that's what I teach. You can meditate for an hour, twirl 3 times, jump on your left foot and raise your right hand if you want, if that helps you, but I don't have time for that. I'm a businesswoman. Turn it on, turn it off. And so that's what I teach in my classes. Ethical boundaries. I can scan somebody's body, but I won't without their permission because I believe it's unethical to do that. It would be the equivalent of, let's say you had pneumonia and I ran into you in the grocery store and I could hear you come and I said, "Girl, what is up?" And you say, and my radar's not turned on yet. And you say, "Oh, I've had walking pneumonia. I've really been feeling punky, but I'm on the mend." So you're telling me what you want me to know, but I'm not looking at your chest x-ray without your permission. So
Mm.
when people say to me, "Can you scan my dad? Can you scan my child? Can you scan my sister?" I had a client yesterday and we scanned 5 other people, including her. But I always ask their permission telepathically. And if they say yes, I will. And if they say no, I won't. Now, it doesn't mean that all is lost because we can communicate with their spirit telepathically. And again, they're going to tell us what they want us to know. But I don't believe that I'm crossing the boundary of privacy in that situation.
Mm. Now, one of the psychics I had on, as you were talking, I remembered this story where she said that she was at a party, and I guess she started seeing things with somebody or whatever. And I guess she told them, and then she tells the story how she was locked in the bathroom and there was a whole line outside her door because everybody wanted to know. But what she said is this thing came to her because with her psychic ability. So my circle back to you is you say you don't scan somebody's body without them giving you permission, whether it's verbally or through their spirit.
Right.
But as if you're in front of me, like we're talking right now, I don't know if you can do it over the airways, but if I'm in front of you, isn't your eye going to scan me whether you tell me or not? Are you not going to see it? How do you stop your body from scanning somebody automatically?
Because I turn it on and off at will. My radar's not on. So I'm not
Okay.
scanning you. I'm just
Okay.
talking to you in my human capacity. I haven't raised my vibrational level to scan
Okay.
you, and I won't scan you unless you ask me to. So
Mm.
imagine how obnoxious that would be if I was at a football game with 100,000 people in the stadium, and I'm going, "Oh, that one's got strep throat. Oh, that one's got like a sore knee. That one's got his back's hurt."
But that's the point. You're not going to tell them, but you're going to know,
I
right?
don't because I don't turn my abilities on unless I
Okay.
want to.
That's good.
Summer is all about keeping things simple, comfortable, and stylish. That's why I love investing in timeless pieces that I can wear again and again. And that's why I love Quince. They make elevated essentials using premium materials like European linen, organic cotton, and washable silk without the traditional retail markup. Quince's 100% European linen pants, dresses, and tops are pieces you'll reach for all summer long. They're lightweight, effortless to style, and start at just $32. I recently paired a blue and white linen pants with a white linen top. I was impressed with the perfect fit, and the casual luxury had everyone complimenting me on my look. Every good outfit needs accessories. Quince's beautiful 14-karat gold jewelry adds a subtle finishing touch. Simple hoops or delicate chains make even the most effortless outfit feel intentional. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier. Go to quince.com/TYM for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/TYM for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TYM.
Now, there have been very few times where I'll be led to turn my abilities on. And I'd be happy to share one fun story with you if you'd like.
Sure. Yes.
I
Yes.
was in Austin, Texas, and I was having lunch at the what's it called? There's an old antebellum hotel there. I'll think of it. It's like the Dillard or the something like that. And it was founded by a guy who made his millions of selling cattle to the Confederate Army during the Civil War. I'll think of his name in a minute. Driscoll, the Driscoll Hotel, Colonel Driscoll.
I remember that.
Have you been there?
No, I just know the name.
It's fabulous. So I'm having lunch there by myself, and I'm reading in the menu the history of the hotel, and they say, well, they used to have in the late 1800s, they'd have visiting psychics and healers come to their spa. And I thought, ooh, cool. I want to hear more about that. So after lunch, I asked the concierge if somebody could give me a tour of the hotel. And she said, sure. So this cute little bellman came and was giving me a tour, and he knew some stuff, but he didn't know a lot. So when you go up there's these double staircases in the lobby, and Colonel Driscoll's paintings right in the middle of the staircases. So I saw what he looked like. We get up to the second level, and there's a kind of a open area around a bunch of ballrooms on the perimeter. And I smelled cigar smoke. And I mean, this is ornate, crystal chandeliers everywhere, just beautiful, beautiful old decor and everything. And I thought, there is no way they're going to let somebody smoke inside this hotel, let alone a cigar. That's not going to happen. So I turned my radar on, and I saw Colonel Driscoll's spirit, kind of waltzing across the floor. He was just checking stuff out. And he looked exactly like he looked in that painting.
That picture, and he had a cigar.
And he had a cigar. He was smoking his cigar, and it was his spirit. So the story goes on. We go around these other ballrooms, and we go in this one, and there are these amazing, there were 8 of them, gold gilded mirrors, gold leaf mirrors. And at the top of every one of them was a cameo carved into the wood, the cameo of a woman. And this little cute bellman said to me, we think these came from Emperor Maximilian's palace in Mexico City, and we think the cameo is of his wife, Carlotta. And I'm hearing in my head, no, it's not. It's his girlfriend. It's his mistress, Jocinda.
So the Driscoll was talking to you?
The spirits were talking to me. And I said to him, have you ever heard of his mistress, Jocinda? And he said, no. And he's going on. And so I just called Carlotta and Jocinda's spirits in, and they showed up in their ball gowns.
Oh my gosh.
Their silk ball gowns with the hoop skirts and dripping in diamonds and jewels and the tiaras and the whole 9 yards. And I said, who's the cameo? And Jocinda said, it's me. So fast forward later that afternoon, I went into a store. Some woman said something to me in the parking lot. I started talking to her. She said, welcome to Austin, blah, 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 blah. I'm part of the Historic Society. I said, oh, I just was at the Driscoll. She goes, well, it's haunted. I said, yeah, I saw spirits in there. I'm a psychic. And she said, what'd you see? And I told her, and she said, I'm a book publisher. Now think about the coincidence of all of this. It wasn't a coincidence.
Wow.
She goes, I'm a book publisher. We just put a book about the Driscoll Hotel into the printing. It's going to go to press in 3 days. Would you consider writing an afterword? And I was there on a business trip. And I said, sure. So I did on the way home in the plane the next day. And I got home and I looked up Emperor Maximilian, Carlotta, his wife, and Jocinda. And there's all this historic information about his mistress, Jocinda. Now,
Wow.
you know what? We can't make that stuff up.
No.
So it was published. My afterword was published in that book. So that's a long story. that I was supposed to turn my radar on, and the prompt was the cigar smoke of Colonel Driscoll, so I could get that information. I mean, you think about that.
And put it in the book.
What's the chance of all of that happening? And it's going to press in 3 days?
Well, a long time ago, I learned from Deepak Chopra about something that's called synchronicity, and like nothing is a coincidence,
Ever.
right? So you're very right. You were led even to go take lunch at that hotel. What
Right.
you can even take the story back. What made you decide to go to that hotel for lunch?
Good point.
You
Yeah.
must have been prompted. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. A friend of mine here in Birmingham said, well, if you have time, go have lunch at this historic hotel. It's beautiful. You'll love it. I
Yeah.
never heard of it.
Right. So it's all, and that's how intuition and spirit talks to you. And that's basically what I tune into. I tune in for instructions like that. And I lay in bed in the morning and I'm tuning in for instructions because I will tell you that I've had some really great instructions that have, supercharged my life, for not a word for it. But so I wait for it. And then the other thing is that I've learned in my little, that if you get instruction and you don't use it, then you get less and less instruction. So when I get instructions, I use it. So the fact that your friend said, you should go to that hotel for lunch, I think you'll like it. And you actually went. Some people would say, who wants to go to a hotel by myself? Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just
Well,
brush it away. And
yeah.
look what became of that.
And I was led to ask the concierge for a tour.
Yeah.
And then
Right,
she
because
said,
again, you saw the menu, right?
and she
right,
said to me, she
exactly.
goes, well, it's haunted. And I said, good, psychic, I'll let you know what I see. I come back and I had all these other things that I saw too when during my tour, but that one was really profound because it led to the afterword of this book being
The book.
published.
Yes. And I think in any area, whether it's you're a psychic or you're in sales, I believe that you need confirmation. And when you see the spirits and you all that, you're confirming that you have this gift, you have this ability. So wow, that's pretty good. All right. So the other thing that you do, you mentioned it in your introduction, is you give energetic diagnosis. So you've scanned thousands of bodies and believe that energetic diagnoses are part of the future of healthcare. What are most people surprised to learn about how illness shows up energetically? Now, I have some information on this myself, and it's not part of the psychic world. I know that your body is all energy. And in fact, I had an interview maybe last month, and I was so blown away by what he said about energy and the cells and things like that. So I've actually he's got a format to help with energy in your body, and I've actually started using it. See, I learned from my guests, so I know about energy and illness and the chakras and the energy body and all that. So what can you tell us from your point of view, psychicness and medical intuitive, about energy and sickness?
Well, there's always an emotional component in place before any kind of disease or illness manifests in the body, 100% of the time. And it's the most important part of healing because we can fix body parts all day long. But if you're leaking power because you got an energy breach in the energy filled membrane, which is the container, it's kind of like imagine a plastic bag that holds the energy that makes up the body and the spirit, as I perceive it. If you're leaking power, what's the point? It's kind of like your car's not running. You take it to the mechanic because you need a new radiator, or you get a new radiator and you go to pick it up, but it's got a dead battery. Well, the new radiator's not going to help you much if you got a dead battery and you can't get your car started, right? Same concept. So that's been interesting. Everything can be healed. Everything is energy. Nobody ever heals anybody else, ever. No doctor, no medical provider, no shaman, no healer like me. We all heal ourselves. We help you heal yourself. The work that I do, the work that Eastern medicine, Western medicine, homeopathic medicine, what we do is all part of the healing equation to help somebody heal themselves. And as an example of that, Myrna, think about if you had a big cut on your leg and you went to the emergency room, well, the doctor's going to stitch it up for you, but the doctor doesn't make your skin grow back. You make your own skin grow back. And so I believe that energy medicine is becoming more and more accepted. As I mentioned, I had foot surgery about 6 weeks ago, and my surgeon was all about the healing different modalities that I was using pre-op, in-op, and post-op. And he wanted the websites of the research that showed the efficacy of how it will help me heal in half the time and use half the pain meds and half the anesthesia would be needed. And
Wow.
and also he wanted links. And how I found out about this stuff was these were all guests on my Ask Julie Ryan show. And so I sent him copies, I sent him the links to the interviews. He was really interested. And there were statements that I asked the anesthesiologist to read as he was putting me under anesthesia. It was about an hour and a half surgery. And then there were 5 statements for him to read as I was coming out of anesthesia, as they were waking me up. And it was really cute because not only the surgeon, but everybody that had taken care of me, the nurse anesthetists that were in there, the nurse that was in there taking care of me during the surgery, they all came in to recovery. And the recovery nurse, I probably have 5 people say, they all want you to know that they read all that stuff you wanted them to read. And they were all really interested in it, and they all wanted my business card. So the zeitgeist is changing. People know that there's research being done that's showing how effective this is in healing, and they're starting to pay attention. And quite frankly, I think a lot of that has to do with the old guard. A lot of them are dying off, the ones that wouldn't even listen.
Mm.
And the newer,
Right.
the younger people are much more willing to listen.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. But I knew about energy as far as positive energy, and I keep myself in a positive energy space because I'm really talking about manifestation. And then, of course, we know that y- um, uh, if you have negative thoughts, then it transforms into, negative energy, and your chakras are blocked and disease forms. But I never heard the concept about leaking energy until this guy that I was talking about, right? He talked about your cells are leaking energy, and he is, so it's very interesting that you say that. Now he had a formula to energize your cells, right? But what you're saying is that emotion. So can you explain the emotion part? When I hear emotion, I'm thinking of anger, gratitude. So how does emotion heal us or not heal us?
Well, let me back up a couple steps first. As I
Okay.
perceive the human body, we're spirits attached to a body having a human experience. We've all heard that a bazillion
Right.
times.
Right.
I was taught in Catholic school that the spirit or the soul is someplace in the chest area. That's
Right.
not what I perceive. What I perceive is the spirit's the main part of us, and the body's inside
Right.
the spirit.
Yes.
So
I've
you
heard that.
think of the old masters' paintings where there's a halo around Jesus or a saint or Buddha or somebody holy. And we say, oh, they're a holy person. Well, guess what? We all have halos.
Right.
That's our energy field. It's our aura. It's all the
Right.
same thing. So that is contained. The energy that makes up our body and our spirit is contained in what I call the energy field membrane. Reminds me of really thin, stretchy saran wrap, the kind that you'd get on a tray of chicken breasts from the grocery store. So envision this just as an example, as an analogy. You go to the pet store to buy a goldfish, and they're going to put it in a plastic bag of water in order for you to get it home. So
Mm-hmm.
our body represents the fish, right? Our
Goldfish.
fish
Right.
represents the body. The water represents our spirit because the body's inside the spirit. And the plastic bag's the energy filled membrane. If there's a pinhole in that plastic bag, Myrna, for a long time, that fish is going to be fine. However, when enough water drains out, that fish is going to be in trouble. And that's what happens to the human body. How do we get leaks in the energy field membrane? They're caused by an emotional event, either in this life or a past life. I'm not looking for the most dramatic or traumatic thing that's happened to you. I'm looking for where did it begin? Because, like psychologists and therapists will say to their clients, now, Myrna, we're going to talk about your life, and it's going to be like peeling an onion a layer at a time. I want to get the onion out by the root. One fell swoop, boom, get it out. Let's heal this. Let's move on. So, that emotional event can be something simple like somebody called you a poopy face when you were little and it hurt your feelings. And we look at that as adults and we think, well, that was no big deal. But it was a big deal to your 3-year-old little self at the time. Or it can be something dramatic. It doesn't matter what it was. My favorite dramatic story happened to a client who lives on Guernsey, one of the northern British Isles. And I saw this scene. I'll go into that terror hole and I'll be shown a scene. I'll be given information. What's the year? Where did it happen? What's going on? And I saw this scene of her, Myrna, of like a preteen, and there was this big explosion behind her. And I said, does that mean anything to you? And she said, yeah, I was a victim of an IRA bombing when I was 12. I still have shrapnel in my thigh. I thought, okay, that's a dramatic thing. She said, I was in the hospital for 3 months. That caused an energy block. Looks like a little kernel of popcorn to me. And then other life events, emotional energy piles on top of it till it causes enough pressure, causes a blowout. Always ruptures before any kind of medical condition happens. Always, always, always. So we identify what was the event that caused this energy block. And we always get an answer. If it's past life, we'll get where it was, when it was, what was going on. We'll correlate it with what's happening in their current life. There's always a connection. As soon as we illuminate it, it eradicates it. Energy field membrane heals. Body goes back to working on full power, helps the body regain and maintain health. I have never seen one rupture, and I've done this tens of thousands of times over the years. I've never seen one rupture. I'm not saying it can't, but I've just never seen it. When I go back in and scan somebody. So it's really
Well,
fast.
I'm glad I asked the question because I'm sitting here when you're talking about emotion, I'm thinking, okay, I got angry and I'm leaking. Or, I forgot to be grateful and I'm leaking. So, but you're talking about, you're talking about
It's
big
fixed.
energy stuff, right? You're
It's
not talking about
fixed.
emotion, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
emotional. Yeah, it can be something benign. It can, and
Right.
the most interesting thing about this, Myrna, is that when it's this lifetime, and I'll say to somebody, okay, it's 1977. They know. 99% of them know instantly. Okay, we moved. I had to go to a new school. I was entering the 5th grade. It was awful. There were mean girls there.
Yeah.
Or my parents got divorced, or my grandfather died, or, I got my heart broken by my first boyfriend. They know. And past lives are so much fun because we'll get where it was, when it was, and what happened. And then they'll bring a semblance of that script forward through multiple lifetimes. And oftentimes we'll get information that we can validate with historic documentation online. And again, I always say, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue into the conversation about debt. So you have, of course, you've been able to go into people's past lives. You're seeing spirits, coming forward and talking to you and all that. So, I mean, in your world, we never die because spirits are, I believe that too, that we never die. We just transition. So you teach 12 phases of transition, a peaceful and expansive way of debt. So can you talk about that?
Yeah.
What are these phases of transition, and
Mhm.
how has understanding this changed the way you personally live, love, and face fear?
Well, it's changed it because we all go to heaven. There was a movie out in the 1980s called All Dogs Go to Heaven. Well, all people go to heaven too. Even the most awful
Really?
people you can think of.
You're
They were
telling me there's no
playing,
hell?
they
I
were
thought you were
no hell,
Catholic.
no hell, no hell. And I got popes, dead popes going, you know the story, so you need to teach the world. I'll tell you that story in a minute. But
Okay.
the most awful person you can think of, most people, our generation would go, Hitler. Hitler's
Yeah.
burning in hell for eternity. That was a role Hitler played in that lifetime.
Mm.
All spirits are pure love. That's a big
Mm.
concept to wrap our heads around because we've been so inundated
Wow.
heaven and hell. My priest at my parish one time from the pulpit said, wouldn't it be nice if somebody really could tell us when we die, if we fly or we fry? I said, I'm stealing that line. He goes, go ahead. So what happens is we're all surrounded by angels. We're all surrounded by the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets as we're transitioning. And they're all waiting for us when we get beyond the pearly gates. And I can describe that to you. The important thing to remember with this is there's university-based research that shows that 90% of people see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets as they're transitioning. 90%. So when we think
So when
grandma
you say transitioning, they're not dead
dying,
yet. They're on the
they're
way.
dying, when they're
Okay.
dying.
Okay.
And
Right.
we think, oh, grandma's hallucinating because she's on morphine from the hospice people, because she's talking to her dead mother who's been dead for 80 years. No, grandma really can see her dead mother's spirit and she's able to communicate with them.
Hmm.
So, how this all came about was my own mother was dying unexpectedly in 2002. And I had been studying woo-woo for about 10 years at that point. I'd never been around anybody at the end of their life before. And so I was with her, and my heart, I felt like the Lady of Justice statue because on one side, my heart was breaking because my mother was dying. On the other side, I was seeing all this glorious stuff going on with angels and spirits
Mm.
of people that I hadn't thought of in 30 years since they died, and pet spirits that we'd had when we were kids, like our dogs and our guinea pig. And these spirits were all in real. And I'm going, holy Moses, am I hallucinating? No, I wasn't. So I watched it all unfold, and that's how I came up with the 12 phases, which I'll describe in a moment. And since that time, I'd seen many other ones. So a couple years after my mom had passed, I was with my mentor and she was doing a healing on me. And when I'm having a healing done, my deceased loved ones line the side of the table and they were all participating in the healing. Even my little dog, Katie, who's on her back hind legs, her little paws are up on the table, her spirit. And so one day, Myrna, this spirit of this dead Pope walked in and he had his Pope hat on and his shepherd's rod. And I said, well, hello, who are you? And he said, I'm Clement. And I said, oh, great. I'm so sorry. I've never heard of a Pope Clement. And he laughed and he said, well, I was number 6. I said, okay, great. How may I help you? And he said, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies because it's been so bastardized and everybody's so afraid and there's nothing to be afraid of. And you know it because I can see it.
Mm.
And I said, thank you so much for that vote of confidence. But you see, I'm a businesswoman. And if I do that, people will think I'm nuts. So I'm really not interested. But thanks for stopping by. And he goes, yeah. Just everything you've done in your business life has prepared you for this. You just need to get on with it because people are too afraid and it's ridiculous. And you know it.
Mhm.
I said, okay, fine. So he leaves. Probably 15 minutes later, I go to get my car to leave. And I just for kicks looked him up on my phone, Pope Clement VI. Turns out this guy was in office during the Black Plague when he's best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead because 2/3 of Europe died during the Black Plague. And I thought, okay, Ryan, you can't make that up. And so he prodded me for a few years. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not,
Oh, you mean he came back?
oh, he's around all the time. No, I'm not doing it. No, it's gonna hurt my businesses. No, I'm not doing it.
Mm.
So I already mentioned the priest from the pulpit when Sunday says, wouldn't it be nice if somebody could tell us? And I'm between my husband and my son, and I'm getting elbowed, and I'm going, God, really? From the pulpit, you're giving me this grief about teaching people this. And then the final straw was I said, okay, well, I'll write a book. I'll put up a website. So we put up askjulieryan.com. I thought something's going to happen and it's going to blow back on me. So I was giving at that Austin trip, I was giving a talk at a conference down there of a bunch of C-suite executives, primarily men. So I gave my talk, the end of my talk, business talk, this guy comes up with his iPad open to askjulieryan.com. And he said, is this you? Well, there's a big picture of me on the front page. And I said, I'm in my head, I'm going, oh. And I said, well, yes, it is. And I had a smile on my face. And he said, can we sit together at lunch? I want to know more about this. And I smiled and I said, sure, that'd be great. And in my head, I'm thinking, great, I'll get pummeled for an hour about this at lunch. Long story short, I sat at a table of 8 at lunch, 7 men and me. All they wanted to talk about was woo-woo and spirituality. They didn't want to talk about the conference. They didn't want to talk about business. They didn't want to talk about what I covered in my talk. And I said, okay.
Did your website say you're a psychic?
Yeah, psychic
Okay.
and psychic
All right.
medium. Yeah, and,
Okay.
and medical intuitive and medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah. So that was the final validation that I needed to say, okay, God, I'm going to come out of the closet big time on this. And whatever happens is going to happen. And the rest is history. Here we are.
God never sends you down the wrong path. You should know that.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah,
really
but-
odd, then it's going to work out.
But that was a big leap, to go from, being a serial entrepreneur who's founded 9 companies in 5 industries to, okay, now I'm a psychic medium and medical intuitive.
Right.
I didn't want it affecting my companies and my employees and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So-
Right. Okay, so let's get into what happens when we die. So
Okay,
walk us
so
through that.
the spirit and the body start to separate. The spirit hangs on to the top of the head, looks like a cartoon speech bubble. And the first spirit to show up is always the maternal spirit, the woman who raised them, whether that be the birth mother, the adopted mother, the grandmother, the whoever. It's the woman that raised them. Let's say for conversation's sake, our patient is in a bed, right? So the mother's spirit shows in up first, the paternal spirit shows up next. If I was dying, my dad's spirit was there. If my dad was still alive, it would be my maternal grandfather. It's always on the maternal line, which was interesting. Because there are a lot of cultures where somebody's not considered like a Jew unless the birth mother is a Jew, right? And there's cultures where it's that maternal line that's creating, to your point earlier when you were starting the show. So then it's the maternal spirit that runs the show from the spirit world. She brings in the angels. She brings in the other deceased loved ones and pets. And these angels, Myrna, look to me like I was taught they look. Big wings, white gown, rope belt, bare feet. Is that what angels really look like? That's what they look like to me. But somebody that's growing up in an indigenous culture in the middle of the Amazon may see angel energy as just a blob of purple fog. Spirits are always going to show up in a way that we can recognize who they are based on our own human frame of reference. Then the angels show up, and then all these spirits show up, and it's lots of deceased loved ones. It's people from all lifetimes of the person who's dying, like Renaissance dressed people, cavemen dressed people, 1960s go-go boots and mini skirts dressed people. It's really interesting. And I'll be able to describe what some of these people look like, and the family with whom I'm working will say, "Oh, well, yeah, that's Grandma Molly, and that's, whoever." I was working with a woman a couple of days ago whose husband is dying. And I think he was in like phase 7 or 8. And I said, okay, there are dogs and cats in the room, but there are giraffes and elephants and zebras. And I said, I've never seen.
Did he come from Africa?
Well, I saw the giraffes first because they were so tall. And She said, well, that makes total sense because he worked for the Peace Corps for 10 years in Africa.
Yes,
He was
exactly.
he
Yeah, he
was
had to be in
surrounded by
Africa,
that.
right?
Yeah, yeah. So there's that. And then as the person's getting closer to death, that circle of angels that's anchored at the feet by the parental spirit starts to open into a horseshoe and is eventually a straight line across the foot of the bed. Couple of nuances. Number one, about phase 6, the spirit bubble is still attached to the top of the head. There are 2 additional angels that show up on either side of the spirit bubble. And about phase 9, between 9 and 10, Myrna, their wings start to move. When I first saw this with my mother, I thought, this is going to be interesting. I have no clue what's going to happen next, but I know they're playing a role. And it reminded me of a giant owl. Slow, rhythmic movement, silent,
Mm,
is slow. It was very graceful. I have goosebumps telling you about it. And
mm,
what happened over time was their movement created a vortex above my
mm,
mother's head. And it felt like being in a car wash when they turn the dryer on at the end and it's sucking all the
mhm,
water off your car.
mhm, mhm.
And that is exactly how my mother's spirit separated from her
Separated and went
body.
up in the vortex. Wow.
And then those angels escorted her to heaven. So when I was writing Angelic Attendants, my book about all of this, which will give you a free copy, stay tuned and we'll tell you how you can get a free copy. Everybody listening and watching, I just did an internet search on owl wings vortex. What I found out was there's this aeronautical engineering phenomenon called the wingtip vortex, which is how the air goes over and under wings and it causes a vortex that causes lift. Every jet, every plane, every bird, every bug, everything that flies has lift from this wingtip vortex. And I thought, good heavens, these angels' wings are doing this. I can see it, I can feel it, I can hear it. And it's causing my mother's spirit to lift up through this vortex. Furthermore, after my mother's funeral, there's a prayer said at the end of every Catholic funeral called In Paradisum. And it talks about how the angels and your loved ones will greet you and lead you into paradise. And I thought,
Mhm.
all right, that's what I saw happen with my mother 3 days ago. So when I was writing Angelic Attendants again, I just researched that and I wanted to find out where did that originate. And what I learned was it began as a 5th century Gregorian chant. So I have to believe that maybe it took till the 5th century till somebody was well educated enough that they could read and write. And
Mhm.
certainly back then, those people were men who were monks living in synagogues and in monasteries, and they were the scribes. So I believe everybody's been able to see this stuff since the beginning of time. And perhaps it just took till the 5th century till somebody, could read and write it down because that was such a revelation. I'd heard that prayer so many times over my life, Myrna, and I thought, whoa, I really understand it now because I just witnessed it with my mother's death.
Wow. So is that why most people are not afraid to die because they're greeted during the transition from loved ones and love? I mean, some people have talked about near-death experience and they talk about going into something that's really beautiful. They don't talk about spirits, but they talk about it's so beautiful that they don't want to come back. And then somebody says, it's not your time. That's why they come
Right.
back.
Right.
So in your experience, um, does anybody ever go kicking and screaming into death, or because the transition is so beautiful that they go willingly? That's the question, really.
I think a lot of people are afraid. And that's why I was led to write Angelic Attendants because I think most of us are afraid, especially in
No,
our
but I mean
Western
afraid
culture.
before we go into transition.
Yeah, we're afraid. We're like, oh, we've seen Ghost and we've seen other movies where, is the like angel of death going to be showing up in a black robe with a pitchfork or something?
Right,
And
right, right, right. Or
we're
I get
afraid.
thrown into hell and I burn
Yeah, yeah,
eternally. But that's
yeah.
in the Bible. I
Yeah,
think.
but you got to remember Hades in the Bible and remember how many times the Bible's been translated. And I am
Right,
no Bible scholar by any means, but
right.
Hades was a leper colony in the middle of the desert. That's where people went when they sinned, when they did bad things. We're going to banish you to the fiery pit of
Pit.
Hades.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Right.
think you got to keep that in perspective too with what.
But this is a good message. There's no hell. I mean, that's a really good message. If you're gonna share positivity and you're gonna share, life, I mean, that's a good message.
Yeah.
Regardless of how bad you still go to heaven. Wow.
The near death experiences are really interesting. And I know, there are a lot of people that have done research on that too. And the commonalities are amazing. I've had several near death experiencers on my show. That's different from the 12 phases of transition. The
Okay.
near death experience is like a preview of a different reality.
Okay.
The 12 phases of transition is when you actually transition and you don't come back in this lifetime. So it's
Got you.
they're
Got you.
not the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So different experiences.
There are some nuances, like near death experience people will say they went through a tunnel. And so,
Right.
but they're being shown like little snippets for the people who are very afraid to die, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
We do this exercise called the walk to heaven, which is a dress rehearsal of what's going to happen as their spirit separates from their body. And everybody, and I've done this thousands and thousands of times, and so have my graduates. We walk through the pearly gates, which, by the way, I've never seen St. Peter out front with a clipboard going, "Yeah, you're allowed in. No, you got to go burn for eternity." Doesn't happen. Heaven looks to me like a plasma wall, brilliant yellowish, whitish light. You pass through it, there's no trace. You come back out, no trace. But as soon as the person goes into heaven, and I have helped people with the angels get them to heaven when they actually pass. My younger sister was one of those people.
Mm.
Excuse me. There's this cheer that goes up from all of the spirits that were in the room with the person. And it's like a magic trick. Then they're on the other side of the pearly gates. And it's like somebody scored a touchdown in a stadium of 100,000 fans. And
Wow. They welcome them with cheers. Yes.
sure. And so it's really fun. The other important thing about the 12 phases of transition is everybody goes through them, regardless of whether they die instantly, like in the case of a homicide or suicide, or whether they die over a prolonged period of time, days, weeks, months,
Wow.
even years, because time doesn't exist in the spirit world. Time is a human creation. And so
Okay.
somebody going through the 12 phases, it may not even be a nanosecond in our time frame of reference. So it's
It's good
important
to
to
know.
remember that too.
Well, I just had an uncle that died. When did he die? When did he die? He died in November, right? And he had cancer, and he was in bed and can't walk and stuff like that. And when you were talking, I remembered something that one morning, he said to his wife, "I'm dead." And she says, "Well, you can't be dead. You're talking to me." But as you were talking, I said to myself, maybe his mother came to visit him and he thought that he was dead because he's talking to her or something. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Good
Yeah.
point.
So,
I had a fun one yesterday. We were talking, my client and I were talking with her mom's spirit in heaven. And spirit communication is so much fun because you never know what they're going to say. I mean, you can't control them when they're alive. You can't control anybody else when they're dead either.
right.
Their spirit. And so she's showing me those icing roses on a cake, like a birthday cake, that
Yeah.
and she showed me like blue roses and yellow roses and green roses and pink roses. And then she said, but my favorite were the white roses where they had the dusting sugar on them, where it made them sparkly. Cause she said, because those were crunchy roses. So I said to my client, I said, does that mean anything to you? She said, my mother's favorite food group was birthday cake. And
Birthday cake.
I'm a big family. And we always were celebrating somebody's birthday. And then she
Wow.
went on to tell me, Myrna, that her mom's name was Rose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
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 Wow. So they
So,
keep their passion in the spirit world.
well, not necessarily. They're going to show us things to let us know it's really
It's
them.
really them. Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. So,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Right. Wow. Wow. Well, this conversation was really joyful for me. Very interesting. So let's tell our listeners now how they can connect with you, talk about your podcast, your website, social
Yeah.
media handles. And yes, we're going to
Free
be
book.
offering our listeners a free gift. So you tell us about that right now.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody that wants a copy of Angelic Attendance, what really happens as we transition from this life into the next, and it comes with illustrations of what the different transition phases look like. Just go to julieryangift.com, and we'll send you a free digital and audio book download. And we also have it in Spanish if anybody prefers it in Spanish. So that's how to get the free book. You can also get it on my website, askjulieryan.com. And everything's Ask Julie Ryan. My YouTube channels, my social media, my podcast is on all the podcast networks. And just look up Ask Julie Ryan and you'll find me.
Yeah, I like it when everybody is, people use the same word everywhere so that everybody can find them. It's great marketing. So, yeah, so this was great. I learned a few things from you, Julie, and yes, I love the information about the analogy you gave with a goldfish and the water and the bag. That was beautiful because that was perfect. Everybody can actually, understand that.
Right.
Yeah, I learned quite a bit from you. Not the usual psychic conversations that I've had or medical intuitive conversations. You took it a little deeper. So that's great. And the phases of death is actually the first time I've heard it. So new information for me. So as we close out, right? I have a little outro here. What if the answers that you've been searching for were already inside of you? What if healing didn't begin in the hospital room, but in awareness? What if fear loosens its grip the moment you understood you were more than your physical body? Julie reminded us today that intuition isn't reserved for a few. It's a skill that we can develop and that we're born with, right? That death is not something to dread, but a transition filled with peace. Your loved ones are there welcoming you, and there is a cheer when you get there. That love, guidance, and connection exist on both sides of this life. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest transformation happens when we stop trying to control everything and start listening to our guides, to our intuition. And if this episode stirred something in you, sit with it, journal about it, pay attention to the nudges. And remember, growth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes in a whisper. So I want to thank you for spending this time with me and Julie on the Transform Your Mind radio podcast and television show. And if this conversation blessed you, please share it with someone who needs hope today. And be sure to check the show notes to connect with Julie and receive her free gift. I will have it both on the show notes on the podcast and on my website, which is myhelps.us. Go there and you'll get the link. So until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep transforming your mind. My mind was blown today. My mind was transformed today. I think my biggest takeaway is that there's no hell. So, I love that there's no hell. You don't burn in eternity. Everybody goes to heaven. So, Julie, any last words before we
Just a delight to get to have this conversation with you today, and I look forward to having you on my show, my Ask Julie Ryan show, and and we'll just continue the conversation and have a ball over there too.
I know. Like I've got to bring it. I've got to deep into my my all the things that I've learned through intuition. And yeah, you know I've got a spiritual base, so I can lend to the conversation. So yeah, so thank you for the invite. Thank you so much for being on the show, Julie. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned as much as me today. And definitely pick up a copy of Julie's book and listen to her show if this is a space that you want to learn more of. And if there's one thing that you want to take away is that everything can be learned. You don't have to be born with it. You can learn it and heal yourself. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on the show, Julie. Until next time, namaste.
Mwah. Bye, everybody.